Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for a very special, highly anticipated episode in which I interviewed my good friend Craig Powell about not only his life, but life in Australia, which, as you guys will hear, is pretty shocking. But I first want to apologize to you guys that I'm just now getting this episode out. As you guys know, I have two films that I'm working on right now, 74 minutes. Also, A House in the Harbinger Kingdom. I have an incredible event in Jefferson, Texas that I'm preparing to leave for in a few days. Just a ton of stuff going on, and I'm doing the best that I can to not overwork myself as I just came off, obviously, as you guys know. I got very sick with the Delta variant. But the good news is, thanks to your support, we are already just over 25% of the way towards my initial goal on Patreon. In only 4 days, we've had over 50 of you have signed up as patrons to help me reach our first goal of bringing on an editor to handle the editing duties, which will make this whole process so much easier, and it will get us to a place where we could have 6 episodes a week released every night at 6 p.m. I can't thank you guys enough for that support, because that is really what's needed right now, is a helping hand. So if you guys are interested in supporting myself and the show that way, again, I've left the Patreon link in the description box below. Once again, thank you all for your support. In regard to this interview, a long time ago, right when the podcast started, I released this episode about Alex Jones being deplatformed. And a lot of people kind of responded like, oh, I can't believe, you like Alex Jones and you support him. And the truth is, I'm not a supporter of Alex Jones, and nor was I. Obviously, I think his approach is so over the top and so bizarre. But what scared me about that is it was the first time in my life where I had seen somebody have their voice taken away. Now, I know it's not technically taking away someone's, First Amendment right, because he can have his own website and he could speak to as many people as he wants to. But to deplatform somebody in today's world is a pretty effective way of silencing someone. And it just scared me, because of all the things in the world that I cherish, right up there with, love, family, and friendship is freedom. And the idea that somebody could take away, our freedoms is something that's very scary to me. Keep that in mind as you listen to this podcast. Also, there's going to be a discussion that, Craig and I have going back and forth where we're talking about, vaccinations versus those that have chosen not to get the vaccination. And the only reason I want to point that out is there's just a much bigger issue that we're discussing here, which is freedom in general. And I would hate to have that lost on a conversation of whether or not you should or shouldn't get the vaccine. You guys know where I stand on that. I've gotten the vaccine. I chose to get it. It was my decision. It made sense for me based upon the information that I researched and my relationships, and also for Laura. But that was our decision. And I fully support, each of us being able to make our own decisions, because maybe I would have felt differently if I was on different medications and had different pre-existing conditions, was at a different age. There's just a lot of variables, in that decision. And I don't think it's a small decision. So I think, again, it's back to freedom. You should be able to choose whatever you want to do, especially because there's not any end game that's going to satisfy. What I mean is, if you believe that everybody, should get the vaccination, or if you believe that nobody should, we're past the point of that happening. It's not like tomorrow we're going to wake up and everybody's going to suddenly get the vaccination and we're going to just, wipe COVID off the face of the earth. That's not going to happen. People are too divided on it, and I understand why. So what that means is we're going to have to ride this thing through. We're going to have to. So with that being the case, I think the focus should be about caring for one another and figuring out how we move forward in that way. That's just my opinion. That's where I stand on it. And I just want to point that out now because, again, what Craig shares in this interview, although politics, of course, are connected to it, I don't think this is a political podcast. I think this is about basic fundamental freedoms. And I know I'm driving that home, but I think it's really important. With that being said, we're going to jump right into this conversation because for the first few minutes, Craig and I, obviously, we just exchanged, pleasantries and kind of caught up. And we just kind of rolled into the interview. So we'll pick up right where it starts. Thank you guys for listening, and here is my interview with Mr. Craig Powell. I was talking, the reason I'm calling is because I was talking to Justin. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was talking to Justin, and he's like, hey, have you reached out to Craig? And this is shortly after Bugsy passed, and I was like, no, I need to. I've just been kind of in my own world because of Bugs. And he said, dude, you need to talk to him. And I'm like, why? What's up? And he just started telling me the most insane stories, like martial law type stories and everything that's going down in Australia. And so I just wanted to hear it from your point of view and share that with people because we're not getting that. Over here on the news, the most you're really hearing is that things are a little tighter in Australia, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So, I guess you tell me, man, like, what is going on? Let's start with that. Let's start with, well, first and foremost, I guess before I just jump into this, how's the fam? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're okay. Look, we've been struggling just like everyone else here in the country. It's just been a terrible time, mate. It's just been a horrible time. But we're just doing the best we can to make things as normal as possible for the boys and for Nick and I to still be able to go to work and try and make things as normal as possible. I really don't know what to tell you. We're not struggling as much as other people are because thankfully we do have jobs and we do have places that we can go to during the day to earn some money, right? But we've had to totally flip our whole lives around to be able to fit in. Again, like a large majority of the population, to be able to fit in with these government rules and regulations going forward in regards to COVID. So we've had to leave the place where we've lived for many years in order to make things, and move our whole lives to make things a little bit easier going forward. Because one of the things that the state government have brought in here is that it's called a travel permit. So what happens is if you live in a area or of concern, a local government area or an LGA, if you live in an LGA of concern, now an LGA of concern is an area that has high cases of COVID, then you need to apply for a travel permit to actually be able to leave that LGA in order to go to work.
How big is the LGA?
Well, it differs. It really does differ. Some LGAs are quite large, some are quite small. So there's a blanket ban in Greater Sydney at the moment that you cannot travel more than 5 kilometres, which is, I think, around 3 miles from your home.
You can't travel more than 3 miles from your home?
No, to be able to do your essential grocery shopping, to have... they've just lifted, but it was 1 hour of exercise per day, and that was it. That was all you could do. You could only go out for an hour a day to do exercise. That has been lifted now, so you can, as long as you are exercising, some form of exercise, even if that's just walking your dog, that's been lifted to be unlimited now. But you must stay within your 5 kilometre radius or your 3 mile radius from home. If you need to do your grocery shopping, Chad, Nick and I couldn't do it together. Only one person per household is allowed to leave the house in order to go to do the groceries.
Why can't you go together? What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, this is all for public health, Chad. This is all for public health, and the thing is that, you know, this raises so many questions for me, and it always has since it's come in, but it feels like the greater percentage of the population here in Sydney are just okay with it. It's like, okay, well, whatever we need to do to get through this, no matter how draconian, how freaking horrible these rules sound and are, people are just complying. And to the point where there are confrontations on the street. You know, if you're seen to be doing the wrong thing, or if you look like you're not from within the area, or God forbid you've taken your mask off to have a drink or something like that, you know, it's not just the police that are cracking down on you, but it's other members of society that will go you in a heartbeat, chat. They will jump down your throat in a heartbeat for the greater good of public health in this city, in this state, and in this country.
That's wild, dude. That's tell me about this, because again, I'm getting bits and pieces from Justin, so I'm trying to like backtrack here. He said the military, like they're using the military to enforce these laws? Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the first signs of military I saw was quite a while ago, and that was the what are they? The drones, the unmanned drones flying across Western Sydney, which I actually took a picture of one day. And people are just saying, dude, you're crazy. Like, military, like, come on, please. And I'm saying, I'm telling you, at some point, we're going to get the military involved. I have friends in the military, and I was hearing whispers from family members that they were getting prepared up in Darwin, up in the north of Queensland, for different phases of lockdowns and, you know, things that were coming up next. Just recently, maybe a month ago, the New South Wales government had called in the Australian military to patrol the streets to help the local police constabulary to make sure that people were doing the right thing. The military were used mostly to make sure that anyone that was tested positive for COVID was actually staying at home. So if you tested positive for COVID and you were ordered to isolate at home for your 14 days, you would get a knock on the door at some point from the military to make sure that you were there. And God forbid, if you were not, you would be hunted down.
Wow. So you have the military hunting. Yep. So say I have COVID and I, by myself, want to take a walk to the park and just have some fresh air, and I'm going to stay away from everybody. Yep. You're telling me the military
which, by the way, is the best thing for you, right? Fresh air, vitamin D, right? Best thing you can do in such an instance. But no, stay at home, indoors, with your air conditioning on. And if you were not there, then there would be a manhunt, and they would be looking for you, and you would get in some serious trouble.
And they're droning they're droning looking for civilians that are violating these laws.
Look, I don't know what the drones are for, but I can tell you now 100%. Unmanned drones have been patrolling the skies over Sydney. Unmanned military drones have been patrolling the skies.
That is wild to me. And one of the wildest stories I heard is, what is this thing about the... when I was over there with you, we had an amazing time when we went to the rugby game. Probably the best sporting event I've ever been to. And Justin said
it was fun.
That it was incredible. I still have like 30 videos from that day. But Justin said to talk to you about that. He said something about they're rounding people up or rounding kids up. Is that right? Or you're explaining to me what's going on there.
Yeah, so basically what they did was, what the government decided to do was, from these LGAs of concern, these hotspots, these clusters here in Greater Sydney, in order to help with the kids doing their end-of-year exams, end-of-school exams, getting them through. They wanted to get them vaccinated to ensure that they were able to do these exams this year. So what they did was they opened one of these stadiums up with the area that you'd been to when you were here. We went and watched the Bulldogs play, and 20,000 kids over the space of 5 days were military precision, all loaded onto buses, all taken to, the stadium, all taken off, all directed into certain areas, and over the space of 5 days, these kids were jabbed. They were vaccinated. Parents were not allowed to be there. If your kid was one of these ones that they were taking, you were not allowed to be there.
They snatched up a stadium full of kids, vaccinated them, and they did not allow parents to be there.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm sure many parents gave permission for their children to be inoculated and to go and have this done. But I've heard many parents say that, we didn't give consent for that to happen to our kid. Some of these kids are not of age of consent, Chad. They're not at that age where they can fully understand and say, yes, I want this to happen. But if there were no parents allowed there at all, parents were not on the buses, parents were not allowed into the stadium, and the kids were sent off. It's just horrifying as a parent, because I have, Diesel's of that age now, mate. Yeah. He is of that age. To think that he would be at school one day without Nick or I being there, and he's herded onto a bus, and we have no idea where he is going or what they are going to do with him. And that shit for me is absolutely, absolutely terrifying.
What freaks me out about it is not only that they're doing it, but what you said earlier is that a lot of people seem to be going along with it. Here in the U.S., I told you I've been vaxxed, but I fully believe in a person's right to choose. But the media here, you can hear both sides of the argument all the time. I spent probably about 30 minutes yesterday just digging into a lot of the Australian media, and what scared me about it, or I should say that I found alarming, is that it was pretty much all one-sided. It was pretty much, yep, everybody needs to take the vaccine, and if you don't, you're an enemy to the state. And is that your experience over there with the press?
There's huge division over here. Firstly, it feels very much like the Stockholm Syndrome here. Like people actually protecting these rules that the government are bringing in for the greater good of the community and health going forward. If you are not vaccinated, you're called selfish, you're called dangerous, you're ostracised, you're told blatantly that they don't want you as part of the community. They will lock you out. They want to lock you out from everything if you are not vaccinated, and people are okay with this. Now, if we were talking about people of ethnicity or colour, or even if we were talking about people of some other medical issue, the world would be outraged, Chad.
Right.
You know what I mean? They would be absolutely, how can we discriminate against people like this? But because it's COVID and because we have a choice whether we want to take the vaccine or not, well, you've been given that choice, you haven't taken that choice, you are a danger to the community and we will shut you out from the community. And I don't see any part of that that is right to me. What part of that is right? I don't understand how people are seeing that this is okay. Where's people's choices in this, Chad? I never cared before whether you were vaccinated for polio or not. Never concerned me. Never even crossed my mind once. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less whether you're vaccinated or whether you're not for COVID, because at the end of the day, you're still my brother. You've still got a refuge here with us. You know what I mean? I couldn't care less. But this thing with the media now, just building up the angst and building up the hate and fear, it's terrifying to see. And they've worked people up into frenzies, you know? They've worked people into absolute frenzies. Luna, enough. And it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible place to live. You know, because even the vaccinated, they have done everything that the government have asked them to do. They have complied fully, right? They complied fully to the government and they did everything that they were told to do. Yet they still don't have their freedoms.
And they're still okay with it.
Yeah.
They've just been told that they can go on picnics with 5 other fully vaccinated people. What sort of freaking freedom is that? You know, as a vaccinated person, we've just done everything that you've told us to do, and we're still not free.
Yeah.
They're vaccinated. Oh, yes, but you can still catch it and you can still spread it. Well, how about you come up with a vaccine that works? Because I can tell you now, I've only had to have 1 polio shot in my life. You know what I mean? And now they're talking about the boosters. And so where's the outrage from the vaccinated? I can understand the outrage from the unvaccinated, the medical apartheid, and as Nick calls it, medical rape. Being forced to have something stuck in your body that you do not consent to. And it's not because you're an anti-vaxxer. The people love to throw this term around, anti-vaxxer. Oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. No, these people are fully vaccinated with all their inoculations from childhood. It's just that they have a question about this particular vaccine because something is not sitting right with them, okay? And they would like to wait until 2023 when studies have been completed and people know the long-term effects before they go ahead and get the shot. I don't see anything wrong with it. Personally, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being 100% sure yourself in your own mind that this is okay before you shove it in your body and you shove it in your kid's body? I don't see the issue with that. But you're being called an anti-vaxxer. You're being called a conspiracy theorist. You're being called selfish. You're being called a danger to the community. Our state premier is saying that these people will be shunned from society completely. There's talk of these camps that the unvaccinated will have to go into. There's all sorts of absolute nonsense that's being spread around, and it's all fear-mongering, and it's coming from the mainstream media and the government. I can tell you now, without the mainstream media, this COVID thing, there wouldn't be as much angst and worry and hate in the community. But it's all it's all due to them. Why can't people have a choice? Why can't they wait until they're 100% sure that they want this? You know, I don't. It's just it's horrible. It's horrible.
No, look, I
think because at 11 o'clock every day. So at 11 o'clock every day, the leader of our state is on the television. Right, and they're telling us how many people have contracted COVID. Right, they're telling us how many people have died from COVID. They're telling us how many people are in the ICU units, but they don't tell you how many of those people that have had COVID have recovered fully and are living healthy lives. They're not telling us how many of those people have underlying medical conditions that have caused them to be sick. They're not saying that. They're spreading the fear in order to get their mission of getting 80% of the population vaccinated.
Double.
Right? Double vaccinated. So, sorry, that's just Nick you can hear in the background.
Yeah, what's
Our Premier
confusing-
recently just came out and said, oh, New South Wales, you've done such a great job in coming out and getting vaccinated and making the community a safer place. Well, the thing I don't understand is that a large majority of those people that are vaccinated have had a gun held to their head in order to do that. They've had a gun held to their head because they've been told, if you don't get vaccinated, you cannot leave your LGA of concern, you cannot go to work. You will not be allowed to work. You will not be allowed to earn a living. You will not be allowed to feed yourselves and feed your family.
That's wild.
Well, of course, a lot of people, family people, are going to roll up their sleeves and going to go, well, I need to feed my kids. I need to go to work. Right? So against their will, they're going to get it anyway because that gun that has been held to their heads. And it's not fair. It's not fair for the vaccinated. It's not fair for the unvaccinated. It's just a horrible, horrible place to be.
Oh man!
And I scratch my head every single day over what this place has come to. Because I tell you now, Chad, Nick and I have had the conversation that let's pack up, let's go to Chad and Laura. You know, let's head to Iowa, let's go to Justin. Yeah. You know what I mean? But the government have plainly said, no, you can't leave. No. Not accepting anyone, you know, leaving the country.
So you can't leave the country right now?
No. You need to apply. And they're not granting applications to move.
You know, it's wild over here. It's very confusing over here too. You know, in California, everybody's masked, right? And we have a high rate of vaccination. And then I was just in, you know, Omaha when Bugsy passed away, and there you would honestly think that there was no COVID. Like there's no mask, there's no anything. It's just so divided depending upon which state that you go to, and it is confusing because like I got COVID initially, then I got the vaccine, and then I still got the Delta variant, and now they're talking about like booster shots, and I've been trying to find an answer like. Shouldn't I not need a booster if I just recovered from COVID? Like, don't I have natural antibodies in me now? Or do I not?
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like it's very hard to get straight answers for what this is. And it's even harder for Laura because in some cases that has existed. Like, Laura's option, I don't think she had an option yet. To be a school teacher here in California, she had to be vaccinated. Like that's just it. Period. She's around children, and she's tested at least like 2 times a week, and you know, so far so good. You know, we just had a scare with her where she had the stomach flu, and we thought, you know, and it's weird because it's so in your head now that you think almost everything is COVID. You know, it's just so jammed in your brain. And big picture, what kind of freaks me out about this is. You know, when I visited Australia multiple times now, and I've told you, like I even was talking about plans later on in life of moving there. I mean, I love Australia, but we used to call it jokingly, we called it America Light, like Bud Light, because you go over there, it's very Americanized. You know what I mean? We were over there, we're like, hey, we live this place, it's America Light, you know, and but that's what also kind of freaks me out about this is. When you look at the work that we did and what you did specifically with SIR NOFACE and all that stuff, and then the second we started digging, you know, in the realm of is this, you know, a government thing that's going on, and then I uncover, you know, this interview with Dr. Greer talking about how these little, you know, grays are being made in Pine Gap. But what freaked me out is it seems like Australia has taken this to this, like, you know, Orwellian, you know, martial law type state. And who directed them to do it? Like, why? Like, why is this the first, like, the first experimental, you know, pool of what, you know, what happens if we take it up a level here? And whenever the government is telling people stay inside your houses, to me, that sounds like you don't need to see what's going on outside. You know, So it got me thinking about all this stuff that we've been through and all the stuff that you've been through. I know you've recently moved, but did you say at some point someone moved in and was filming you or something?
Yeah. So the house that we were in for quite a while, it's that same house where I took the photo of the guy with the glowing head across the road in the vacant lot. That house there. We had some neighbours who were quite noisy. Not nice people, but quite noisy, and the kids were noisy, and just a normal family. But one night in the middle of the night, Chad, they just got up and left. They just gone, and it was more or less overnight. And Nick and I were like, where the heck did they go? Like, have they gone? Did they move out? And sure enough, they had. They moved out completely. Now, this was in the midst of, after he'd released Phantom Rider and Two-Face the Grey, all that time when all that weird stuff was going on. Anyway, the house was vacant, and it had been vacant for a very long time. I'm talking about close to a year when there was nobody in this house. And, if you're an owner and you're renting out your property and you've got no one in it for a year, that's a heck of a lot of money that you're forking out yourself to pay your mortgage, right? So it just seemed really odd that this house there was nothing in, nobody there. It was just empty. And then we started, just noticing little strange, odd things about the house. We'd be out in our backyard and you'd hear noises coming from inside. You'd look and there'd be no lights on, and you'd think to yourself, geez, it sounded like someone was moving around in there. To the point where even our neighbour on the other side of us, when he was going for his walk, we'd have a chat out the front. He actually said to us, he's gone, and you got to remember, this guy didn't know who Nick and I were or what we did, right? But he said to us, "Oh, geez, do you think this place next to you is haunted?" And I've looked at him and I said, "What would make you say that?" And he's gone, "I've noticed several times now that there's been odd noises out, whether when I'm bringing my bins out at night or whatever." He's gone, there'd be some strange noises coming from in there. Diesel, he noticed strange noises coming from the house as well.
Wow.
And I would go and check, and the house would be fully locked up. You couldn't get in. It was, unless you actually broke in, but everything seemed to be locked up. It got to the point where Nick and I called the real estate for this place next door and just said, "Hey, can you come and check out what's going on? We think there might be squatters inside." Because one night when I woke up to do a late night bathroom run, I just so happened to walk past our bedroom window, and our bedroom window was more or less, exactly opposite the bedroom window to the house next door, and there was a light in there, and it looked like as if someone was moving around with like candlelight or a really dull, type of flashlight. And I watched it and I filmed it. I stood there, grabbed my phone, and I'm filming this light moving around this empty house. Right? So we got the real estate out, and the real estate came and they walked in there and they said, "No, there's no sign. Doesn't look like there's any signs of anybody living here at all." And then you'd see, there'd be windows that were open all of a sudden during the day. You'd look up and you'd see that there was a window open. And it got to the point where Nick and I were like, there is someone, no doubt there is someone living next door.
Wow.
And one night on my phone, and both of us have experienced this. I was sitting in my lounge room one night. Nick had gone upstairs to have a shower, and I got a message pop up on my phone. And I've looked at the message, and it was a video file. So I'm playing this video, and I'm watching the video. And I'm having a hard time understanding what the heck I'm looking at. I'm thinking, I don't recognise this number. I don't know what this is that I'm looking at. But what was on the video was shot from someone's window, and it was filming another window. And I realised that what they were filming was my lounge room window where I was sat.
Oh my God.
So it took me a couple of minutes to figure it out, but then I've got, oh my God, this is coming from next door. This is coming from next door. So what I did was I grabbed my video camera and I videoed the video on my phone, because there was this inkling in me saying, this video is not going to be on here for long. And you know what, Chad? It wasn't. I managed to show Nick. I managed to get a video on my video camera of it. But then all of a sudden, this message just disappeared. Like, just disappeared out of nowhere. Just gone. And I have no doubt that whoever it was associated with those people that were in my vacant lot late at night, just watching our house. And I think whoever was in this house was associated with them. And it was some type of fear campaign again, I'm guessing. But, that really shook me, because this is next door. This is next door to where my kids are. And that shit was terrifying. And then you know what? COVID happened last year, the first lot of COVID in 2020, and that all stopped. Everything stopped. There was no more activity in the
weird?
House, and
people
moved in not long after. And
it did here too. There's probably probably a good, I don't know, 8-month period where it was pretty quiet, and Laura and I would talk about that, and I was like, hey man, I welcome it, I don't need any of this, weird shit going on. But then things did start to happen, and I think I sent you the pictures that there were weird looking UFO like pictures that were just showed up on my phone, and I'm like, what in the hell is this? But one of the weirdest things happened. I had ran into a guy on the street and had a really weird correspondence, and he said, as he walked away, he said my real name, Charles. But another really weird thing happened. You know me, dude. I have a super close circle. I don't go out much. I'm not a big public type person. But I had a black hat that had just worn itself out, and the way to get it is to get the same exact hat that I like. There's this place called Lids in the 3rd Street Promenade, and 3rd Street is like a pedestrian mall, and it's much hardly as packed as it used to be, but still it's a big cross section of tourism, right? Yeah. So I go down there, and this is after, Two-Face had come out and Phantom Rider had come out. And I come around the corner, and like immediately there's a younger kid, probably 22, 23 years old. And he stops me right away because he can't believe it's me. He had just watched like Two-Face the Gray, and he just had a million questions. He's a super nice kid, and just wanted a picture, and we took, the selfie, and I was thinking, wow, that's interesting. Like, because I get stopped often, still to this day, for Paranormal State, definitely for American Ghost Hunter, but that was, kind of newer, because it was such a new film. So it's about a 3-block walk from where I'm going to and where I'm coming back. And man, I don't know if I just came across a day where people that had seen it, or if it's just on everyone's mind because it's such a big news story. But it's probably 2 or 3 more times people had stopped me, just had questions and wanted to take pictures. And right before I got to the lid store, there was an older guy, probably, well, I shouldn't say older, it's probably like mid-30s, and he just had questions about, Two-Face and Phantom Rider, and we got talking for a while, and, I was just being honest with him what I thought. And I finally just said, well, listen, man, I appreciate, your support and watching, and, but I am running to grab this hat real fast and, head home. And So I went and got the hat. And when I came back out, he was still standing there. And he said, so, where's this all headed? And I go, the Two-Face and Phantom Rider? And he goes, yeah, where's it all headed? And I go, well, look, man, the plans are to go back to, Australia, but there's a way that, Craig and I have to do this. It's got to be done properly, and we're going to need security, and there's a lot of places we got to go, and a lot of questions we got to answer, and I go, I'm sure it's going to be quite the process, and I don't really know right now when that can even happen because of COVID, and I'm like, but, I can tell you, I'm going to finish this. And because a lot of people, their number one question is, where's the next chapter? You know what I mean? Like the end of it. And I go, it's definitely, worth the time and effort. I've been so far down this road. It's like, it's something that's definitely going to happen. And he pauses and he goes, or maybe you can just leave it alone. And there's just this dead silence. And I'm just looking at him and he's not smiling. He's not looking at me like he's mad or anything. He's just stoic, And I look at him and I just go, yeah, I could. I'm like, but, like I said, I'm kind of already down this road. The weird thing about that encounter is I probably spent a good 10 minutes talking to him, and he seemed fascinated, like, with the whole thing. And I'm thinking, someone who's fascinated with the whole story would not want me to not keep going. You know what I mean? They wouldn't go, you just stop right now. You know what I mean? It was weird. But even weirder shit, look, you saw in Phantom Rider, there was a shooting, right in front of me, which really, really freaked me out. And what's weird is the day before that, there was another, literally on my sidewalk, another murder that happened. And listen, again, you know where I live, man. Like, this is not some bad part of town. And it's not homeless. Homeless people are not running around with weapons. Okay? Homeless people can barely, you know what I mean? Like, they're trying to survive.
Yeah.
And then, literally, I talked to you briefly 48 hours ago, and I woke up again yesterday morning to the fresh smell of a forensics van right in front of my place. And again, another shooting. Like, I'll, for the people listening to this, I'll post the pictures so you can see it. And bizarre story. Thank God I just learned today that the person who was shot is actually going to make it. They're going to pull through. But the story was a guy was in a car. It was 3 a.m. He was in a car and he was tired. He was driving south. And he just pulled off in what appeared to be a nice neighborhood at a public, pay toll. And just literally right outside my front door. Pulls over there. He said at 3 a.m. he's sleeping, and he gets a knock on his window, and someone says, hey, give me your keys. And supposedly the guy was kind of like wiping the sleep out of his eyes, and he was like, what? And he said, look over there. And the guy looked, and there was another dude on the passenger side. And he looked back, and supposedly he was going to give the guy his keys. But when he looked back, the guy just had a handgun and just fired right into him. And the dude on the passenger side started firing too, and they both just took off. And they're still at large. Thankfully, this person was, tons of people heard it and called it. What's interesting is Laura and I heard the shots. We just didn't know that's what they were. I said to Laura when it happened, I said, Laura. And she's like, what was that? And I go, I think that's gunfire. And she's like, you sure it's not like a backfire in a car or something? I go, no, I think that's gunfire. And but we ended up going off to sleep. I looked out my window, my side window. I didn't see anything, but it was right outside the front door. And it's just so bizarre. It's like there's these murders that are happening around the place, and none of them seem to have any motive that makes any sense. Like, why would like just like again the one that's profiled in Phantom Rider? I mean, this guy fires at a vehicle that happens to be going crosswind with me. Then he runs down to the beach, takes off his shirt, and just kills himself. It reminds me of that MK Ultra shit, where people are just doing things and they don't know why. Yeah. And that's why, like, when I start hearing about all of this Australia shit, what's really weird is there was this massive, massive swell of UFO information for like 2 straight steady years. And then it's almost like it goes calm for a second. And the second it goes calm, all this shit in Australia starts. Like it's the next level of martial law to see how far can we push this. And it goes back to like, what if this were to happen? Let's just let's take Sky Falls predictions for what it's worth. If there is, and it's not just Skyfall, by the way, 1 million people have discussed this fake alien invasion. If it were going to happen, the one place that it would seemingly emanate that makes the most sense would be Australia, and it's just weird that Pine Gap's down there, and that's a joint base. That its first year that it was created, it was called like I forget the exact name. I'll look it up and put it on the screen for you. But it was called something like the American Australian Joint Space like Base. It was like called that for 1 year, correct. And then they changed the name of it. And then and I've been to Australia, dude. I've flown over that outback. That is the biggest damn country in the world. They could have put that base anywhere they wanted to put it. The place they chose was the location where Aboriginals traveled to communicate with, quote, space.
That's exactly right.
Right. They could have put it fucking anywhere. They put it in that one spot. And the Aboriginal culture, obviously, as you know, is ripe with communications with, spacemen, quote. So I guess the point that I'm leading to is I don't know what all the connection is, but why does everything that's bizarre seemingly lead back to Australia? It just all seems like it's... And when I plug that into what you got asked to do, things start making more and more sense to me. And I start believing that you were being documented. That's why they were going to let that thing go on forever. And I start to feel like I was the fork in the spokes that they didn't recognize, that they didn't see coming. I've also heard, and I want you to check this for me, there's quotes and comments on my pages that say that everything to do in Australia, which for one, someone was saying that for some reason Two-Face the Grey and Phantom Rider are blocked in Australia on Vimeo, which should not be the case. But I've had people say that my name is shadow banned, that they can't even find my name in searches in Australia.
Well, look, all I can tell you is this, brother. I've lost my website. The Team Whisper website is gone. I can't access it. I can't open a new one. It is gone. I've lost access to my email account for all my paranormal stuff. There are people on my social media commenting as me from my social media pages.
Wow.
And people are asking me why I've been so inactive of late. Well, it's not because I've been inactive. It's just because you can't see anything I'm doing because I'm not able to access any of this stuff anymore. You know what I mean? So, all of my vlogs and, all of those little videos I used to be able to do before, I can't even get onto my YouTube now to be able to post any of that stuff. You know what I mean? I have lost access. And for anyone in Australia, in Sydney that is listening to this, whilst we are all so caught up in this COVID madness and lockdowns that is happening here, while our attention is fully fixed on that, look up, because there's some weird shit going on in the night skies over Sydney. Really weird stuff. And it's only because Nick and I are aware of it that we're noticing it more and more and more. But everyone else is just so fixated on what's in front of them in regards to vaccinations, lockdowns, COVID, getting our freedoms back, that they're missing all the shit that's going on. It's kind of like this is all a big cover for something else because we're not looking. Our minds are somewhere else at the moment, but there's weird stuff going on.
It's like they wanted us to look up for so long. And then, I don't know if you saw that J.J. Abrams Showtime one. That was like next level, to the point where they finally said America, or they said the world is not ready for what's coming. I mean, they came out and said it in that one. It was like, okay, finally somebody's saying what's really happening here. But whenever I see things like right now in America, the thing that's going on right now that has completely taken over all media right now is a story of Gabby. I just did a podcast on her yesterday, this Gabby and this Brian Laundrie. The story has just taken over, bro. And it's either COVID, the borders, or Gabby. And at the same time, from what you're describing, it pretty much sounds like martial law is going on in Australia. And I'm getting videos from people that send them to me of the craziest shit in the sky ever. And when they're not reporting on it all of a sudden, you know what I mean? And I'm still getting videos of like some, and there's a couple of them, dude, that I would put dollars to cents that they're real as can be. And, tons of people are saying that to me, that there's crazy stuff going on in the sky right now and no one's paying attention to what's happening. And you said that you and Nick have seen it as well, too.
Yeah, I mean, just because, Chad, the police brutality in Sydney and in Melbourne is going through the roof. I've never seen the police act in such a manner before against its own citizens. So whilst our attention is on stuff like this, just thinking, what the hell is going on? I guarantee you there's shit going on behind the scenes that we're not knowing about, because our attention's fixated on what's going on here. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's really, really strange times, man. Really strange times.
That is really, really bizarre, dude. Man. All of it scares the shit out of me. I guess, and not like I'm sitting around in my house like shaking, but it's so worrisome, dude. Like, I never thought I would see a time in a first world country, in a democratic state that the public would just go along with stuff. I mean, look, the reason why I'm not surprised by people questioning the government about the vaccine, beyond the fact that the nature of it, how quickly it was pushed through and all that stuff. But I'm not surprised because, look, our government hasn't done anything to gain our trust in decades, or even further. Right. So that alone, I understand when someone says, wait a minute, I don't know if I trust the government. Well, I completely understand that.
Right.
And that's why I think it has to be a personal choice. And I don't think you're a bad person if you just say, listen, I just want to wait and I want to know what I'm doing and I want to feel comfortable about this. And to take away that right,
like I've always said, brother, I don't care if you're vaccinated or you're not. Your private medical, personal stuff is yours alone. I don't care if you're vaccinated. I don't care if you're not. If you're my brother, you're my brother. If you're my family, you're my family, and we look after each other. Like Nick and I always say, our house is a refuge for anyone that needs us. You know what I mean? Right. It's never worried me before. It will never worry me going forward, But the sheer lack of freedoms that have been taken away from not only the unvaccinated, but the vaccinated, the ones that have done the right thing by the government, is astounding. The police brutality is through the roof. To even mention getting the military involved, even though, of classification-wise, it's not really martial law because there isn't, a head honcho from the military running the show at the moment. The government still is, but they are enforcing lockdown orders on the streets. They are vaccinating.
That's semantical. When you're bringing people in uniform to enforce laws that have not been voted on.
I get it.
What I mean? Yeah.
And there's not only that, but I'll get a video and I'll send it to you. But there was a video of a young man, I think it was in Melbourne, protesting mandatory vaccination for the construction industry, and he was it looked like an undercover police car because it had the lights on it. But next minute, these guys jump out in uniforms I've never seen before. They were khaki green. They looked like the police SWAT outfits, but khaki green. But there was not 1 ounce of any type of identification on them. There was no military identification on them. There was no police. These guys it was just plain khaki green. And I saw that for the first time yesterday, and I'm thinking, what the hell? What's going on? What are we coming to? What the hell is happening? What is happening that we get to this point?
And here's the thing: it's an unattainable goal, because, Craig, in order to, like, even in America, so what? Like, what are the chances that tomorrow everyone will take the vaccine? Zero.
Yeah.
Zero chance, and that's just our country. You know, people travel from every other. So it's an unobtainable goal. Like, this thing is going to run its course, and it's like, you know, again, I made my decision. I'm comfortable with it. I'll live with it. That's what it is. But everybody has the right to do that, because this idea,
of course,
this utopic idea that suddenly everybody in the world is going to take a vaccine and this thing is going to be just wiped from the face of the earth in a day, you know, or in a month, or in 6 months. There's always going to be people that don't take it. And even if you do take it, there's breakthrough cases. I'm an example of one. So it's not a cure, and it's not even necessarily a vaccine. But what it is, according to, if you listen to the doctors, or they say that it basically helps you. It just helps you get through it. It doesn't even end it. It doesn't even cure it. You know what I mean? That's so it's a super weird situation, and it's a super uncomfortable time, man.
It is. I can tell you now, Chad, going forward, I will never take my freedom of choice for granted ever again. Yeah. Ever again. You know, I always thought that I would have that power to be, you know, it's my choice. At the end of the day, it's my choice. And you take that for granted, and everyone does. Everyone takes that for granted, but I'll never take that for granted again. And working now in the funeral industry, working in death, man, that has opened my eyes even more to the fact that there is something not right here. There is just something that's not right. You know, when you and I investigate, and we're out on an investigation, and we're together in the darkness, and it's just you and me, and shit's about to get real, and you can just feel it in your guts, right? You just know that something's not right. Your intuition tells you there's something not right here. Like, this doesn't feel right. There's something not right. Right. And you've got to make a decision. And that's the feeling I've had from day one in regards to this. I've never doubted that COVID, you know, I'm not one of those people that say COVID's not real. Of course, yes, it's real. It's out there. It's making people sick, right? But, you know, I'm not... I classify myself a critical thinker. Jesus, that's what I do. That's my background. I've always called myself a paranormal investigator, an explorer of the unknown. Of course I'm a critical thinker. Of course I'm going to look into things a different way than, you know, John Smith next door is going to look at it. You know, our government, and this got me so fucking angry. Our government came out only a few weeks ago. You ask anyone in Australia, and they said to us, we have just eradicated the flu virus. The flu virus does not exist in Australia anymore. In fact, no one has died from the flu virus. I can tell you now, that is the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever heard in my life, because not more than a month ago, in 1 week, I cremated 6 people that had died from influenza or the effects of influenza. And yet he's here up on my television spruiking that the influenza virus has been eradicated, it's not here, and that no one has died from it.
That's wild, man. And
I'm just thinking, you are lying. You were lying to us. If you're lying there, you're lying about other shit, right? And what I found funny is that all these people saying to me, Craig, you've got to listen to the government. You know, you got to listen to the science, you got to listen to the government. The government's telling us this. New South Wales Health is telling us this. Yet, you know, a couple of years ago during election time, they were the same people saying to me, oh, you can't trust the government. They're all liars. What are you listening to the government for? None of them should be in there. Yeah. They're all a bunch of liars. You know what I mean? But now all of a sudden, we need to listen to them, and they are blatantly lying to us. And I get passionate about that because...
What I can tell you about the Delta variant is that I could see how if you have, I said this in my last podcast, but it's relentless. I mean, dude, I had so many days, and like, dude, probably 10 days in a row of, 102, bordering on 103 fever. I mean, whenever you have something that is just at war with your immune system, if you have anything else that your body's trying to fight, yeah, I could see how it's not going to be strong enough.
Sure.
I could totally see that.
Yeah.
And what you're saying here makes sense to me, because at that point, what are you actually dying of? Are you dying of a poor immune system that couldn't, battle treatment from cancer, couldn't battle another, another sickness that you have, couldn't, battle another pre-existing condition? And if it can't, do you say they died of a heart disease or they died of COVID? Well, of course, everybody's saying COVID, right? They're just pushing that. So I know that's a fact. And this whole thing just freaks me out. And for whatever reason, man, Australia just seems to be this place where all the weirdness goes back to there, and look, man, I got to run and get Lori here, but I love you, brother. I love your family. Thank you again for being somebody that has always been willing to just, speak truth and tell the world what's going on. And I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else will, because we're not getting the coverage over here. Some of the shit you told me is just, it boggles my mind.
Yeah, look, there's media bans going on here too now as well, so we're not seeing the full story either. But yeah, love you too, brother. I'm glad that you're feeling better.
Yeah, man.
That you've beaten it and all that type of stuff, man. And give my love to Laura. And look, one day we'll be able to be together and run amok again, I'm sure.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait. It's been way too long, man, and way too much drama. And we'll see this through. Just be safe, be healthy. I know you will, but put your health and your family first. That little voice inside you, it'll guide you in the right direction for you, brother.
Yeah, we're doing all we can here to stay healthy, man. So we'll be right. We'll all be good.
Okay, brother. All right. Thank you so much for doing this, brother. And I'm going to call you soon. I got to run and get Laura right now, okay?
Yeah, man. See you, bro.
All right. Take care, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you have it. A pretty mind-blowing conversation. Living in Los Angeles, I think we saw and have seen probably the heaviest hand out of all the states in the United States in regard to COVID. But nothing like what Craig is talking about. At no point did the military knock on my door and tell me I'm not leaving unless I'm going to exercise. At no point have I seen a manhunt for somebody who did not want, to follow those rules. I have not seen some of the stuff he's talking about, the premier saying that they've eradicated the flu virus. And to me, the most shocking one was just grabbing all those children and putting them through ANZ, the stadium, and vaccinating them without the parents being allowed. That is mind-blowing to me for so many reasons, and I have so many thoughts on this, but I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think about everything that Craig is experiencing and what's going on in Australia, and why we aren't really getting the truth of what's happening in Australia with the U.S. media. I'm really, really interested in hearing what you have to say. Also, for my Patreon members, there is a longer, uncensored version of this with some topics that I know for a fact that YouTube would have definitely demonetized, if not gave me a strike for. That's over there on the Patreon page, which is what's really cool about the Patreon page as well, is that they don't have those types of guidelines and regulations. So if you are a member of the Patreon, it is up and waiting for you, so feel free to go check it out. And once again, if you want to consider supporting us in that fashion, like I said, the Patreon link is in the description box below. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, I'm going to have a follow-up episode with my thoughts about all of this. I will be back soon with another episode, my friends. All the best.